And another kind of border battle tonight, this one over boundaries and butterflies. The Supreme Court has rejected an appeal by environmental groups over the border wall, but it's far from over. Opponents now accuse government contractors of trespassing on a private sanctuary. Border reporter Oscar Margain explains.
How you doing?
Okay, good.
Doing good.
This cell phone video recorded Monday shows land surveyors working near the U.S.-Mexico border. A spokesman for the National Butterfly Center says it's evidence of government contractors violating an agreement.
Okay, and I explained to him that I was with the National Butterfly Center and I was documenting what they were doing.
Luciano Guerra, who works for the center, says he recorded that video after he noticed MDS land surveying company workers placing border wall markers on their property. However, at the time of the recording, Guerra says they had moved to the neighbor's land next door.
This is where they were working. They were putting in stakes like this here.
He believes these wooden stakes along the levee road delineate where a 6-mile concrete wall topped with 18-feet steel bollards will be built beginning in February, essentially sectioning off 70% of their property into no man's land.
This was not supposed to be left open.
The Butterfly Center claims Customs and Border Protection is repeatedly breaching the right of entry agreement signed in October through the companies they contract. Such agreement states in part that the government will give the owner a 72-hour notice of surveyors intending to access the land.
In some cases, they're abiding by that, in others, they are not.
Customs and Border Protection hasn't responded to this claim. Trevino is documenting and denouncing these alleged violations to protect as much of the integrity of the refuge as possible, home to hundreds of animal and plant species. Lawyers for the Butterfly Center filed an appeal arguing that the Trump administration improperly waived 28 environmental laws, but on Monday the Supreme Court sided with the administration. With this ruling, Trevino expects the lower courts to dismiss about half of their lawsuit as they try to hold on to any leverage they have left.
The government has petitioned to have our lawsuit summarily dismissed, in effect denying us any day in court or opportunity for a hearing. And we have responded to that petition. We're waiting for a judge to decide.
In Mission on the Texas-Mexico border, I'm Oscar Margain reporting.